Good afternoon. Welcome to the Compassion Consortium Sunday service. I'm Reverend Sarah Bowen. I'm joined today by co-founders Reverend William Melton, Reverend Erica Allison, and Victoria Moran. And as always, we're really grateful that Phil is busy steering us through the Zoom affair, no matter how many times it takes me to get things right and our technology to get right. Today, we're doing this for a second time. And to get sea lions in and out of our room and keep this a really wonderful, fun, technologically sane space. We meet the fourth Sunday of every month, and we hope to see you often. If you're new to us, welcome. We're an interfaith, interspiritual, and interspecies community. And if you're watching us online for the first time, welcome. Interfaith means that we welcome people of any spiritual or religious tradition or philosophy or path or system of meaning making, and we feature all of these within our programming. And interspiritual means that we believe underneath all of these wisdom traditions, there lies a deeper unity of experience and a commitment to three common values: peace, compassionate service. Does anyone remember the third? Love for all of creation. That combination of interfaith and interspiritual is why last month we had a Buddhist guest here. Today we have a special surprise, and next month we'll be checking out A Course in Miracles. And it's also why you'll find some folks up here who have Rev in front of their Zoom names who are not Christian ministers. And sometime I'm going to tell you about that. Finally, our community is interspecies, which means we want to have a truly inclusive spiritual community here that goes beyond human superiority, exclusivism, speciesism, other isms, to consider the needs of the many species we share the planet with. We're called Compassion Consortium because our primary goal is spreading compassion everywhere, to everyone, in everything we do, from this moment to all the other things we do. And today I'm speaking to you again from the Hudson River Valley of New York, a land cherished by the Munsee Lenape, as well as over 200 types of fish, 19 species of rare birds, 140 rare plants, a heck of a lot of squirrels, and a plant which grows nowhere else on Earth called the Hudson River Water Nymph, which sounds kind of like a fairy, but it's a lacy kind of green plant. It's fascinating. But what I want to talk to you all about today is hairballs. You heard me right. I want to talk about hairballs, because one of my roommates, Deacon, has had a recent influx of hairballs. He's a furry little black creature we call a cat. And so I was searching online for some help for him, and I stumbled upon a book called this. Oh, it's right here. Orbiting the Giant Hairball. And so I had to order it immediately. It's by Gordon Mackenzie, and Gordon served as the role of creative paradox at Hallmark. You know, the greeting card company, right? Hallmark, for many, many years. So I couldn't resist the book, and I'm glad I got it, and I want to share a little bit of it. I recommend the whole book, but here's a little piece. Mackenzie tells of an interchange he often had when he would take a day off of his corporate gig at Hallmark to go and make magic with kids at a local school where his wife was the cultural arts coordinator. So during the day, he would meet with each class grade by grade. He would introduce himself, and he would say, "Hi, I'm Gordon Mackenzie, and among other things, I'm an artist. I bet there are other artists here too. I'm curious how many. Would you please raise your hand if you're an artist?" And in the book, he reports that first graders leapt up in mass, waving wildly and super eagerly, "I'm an artist, I'm an artist." In the next class, about half of the second graders would raise their hands about shoulder high and kind of hold them still. "I'm an artist." In the third grade class, about a third of the kids would raise their hands tentatively and kind of self-consciously, and so on. You get the pattern here until you get to the sixth grade, when only one or two kids would raise their hand, kind of looking around at their classmates. And so he'd tell the sixth graders what had happened in all these other classes. And he'd say, "What's going on here? Are all the artists in your school transferring out of here and going to art school? What's happening? Why are there no artists in the sixth grade?" And so Mackenzie suggests through the rest of this book that in raising children, we suppress creativity, we suppress magic, we suppress wonder and awe. We suppress it right out of our kids, which teach them no. We teach them how to color in the lines. We teach them how to have boundaries. And in my role as clergy, I've seen something similar. We suppress on wonder and mystery. Anything that can't be repeated or codified or quantified is suspect, or worse, disparaged. How many people have been called woo-woo occasionally, or been told they have superstitions, right? We've been told that some of these things that are important to us are immature or naive, that it's foolish to believe in something that can't be proven, like God or goddess or miracles or magic, phenomenons. And so we give up on these things too easily. We turn to mindful-based stress reduction, and we look for research reports to prove the efficacy of a meditation that's stripped of anything remotely divine, and we become afraid of talking about our spiritual lives in public spaces. Mackenzie suggests that the key to getting back to creativity is to learn to orbit the giant hairball, which is his name for policies and procedures and red tape in organizations. Orbit it, stay engaged, but don't get stuck in the hairball. And so I started thinking, is religion a hairball too? Because at the center of each tradition that we explore is mystery and awe and wonder and magic. These elements are exactly why religions start in the first place. They spring forth because something amazing happens to someone or a group of people, and they go to try to explain what the heck just happened. And then they put layers and layers and layers of ideas and processes and procedures and all of that on top of the original idea. And they form communities to talk about, hey, remember that experience we had? Remember what it meant? Remember why it was important? What do we think about that now? What does it mean to us today? They rejoice with each other about joys, and on the flip side, they hold each other through the fear of the unknown. So as modern seekers, we can be prone to tossing everything we don't like about religion, which is actually people's bad behavior, and say we don't need this thing called religion. And yet, many of the practices that we're doing come from religion, that spirituality and religion are synonymous, not opposites. So we have to untangle the giant hairball, I think. Hair by hair, going back to see the beauty at the core, that nourishing little nugget at the beginning of something. So I think, to wrap this up, that what we need to do is regain our sense of playfulness and possibility. We have to remember the childhood lessons of the Velveteen Rabbit and Puff the Magic Dragon. Remember that all beings have values and are our friends, and we can talk to them and we can run around in the woods with them. That we are artists and that they are artists too. We co-create habitats together. So I hope in this space today, we enter it with curiosity and wonder. And I hope you will all go forth with your arms raised high in the air like first graders, saying, yeah, I'm in. I'm in. Bring on the creativity. Bring on the excitement. I am an artist too. All right, William, over to you.
This is the part of our service where we read our Tenets of Agreement. These are very important to us. They are the fundamental principles upon which the Compassion Consortium is founded. And today, our reader will be Elaine Hutchison. Elaine is a member of the Compassion Consortium, and she is a copywriter, ghostwriter, and website creator who lives in a small farm in the Cascade foothills of Washington State. She is a recent graduate of the Main Street Vegan Academy, and she creates captivating content, blogs, and websites for vegan companies, personalities, and causes. Elaine is the web designer and editor for the Compassion Consortium website, and she can be reached at elaine@unicorncopywriting.com. Elaine, over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm ready to go. Our Tenets of Agreement. We acknowledge a divine force at the heart of the universe and in all living beings. We may refer to this force as God, but it is known by many names and appears in different forms or as formless. We recognize the common moral principles inherent within all wisdom traditions. We affirm that compassion, reverence for life, and nonviolence are fundamental to religious faith and moral philosophy and are to be extended to all sentient beings. We stand by the principles of inclusion, diversity, and equality, and hold these as essential in our human relations. We hold that non-human animals are imbued with the same essence of life and love as our human animals, and that there is moral parity between us. We avow that humans do not own the earth, its resources, or its inhabitants, but instead must be involved in their protection and care. We endeavor to eat and live in a kind and sustainable manner, moving away from animal foods and animal-derived clothing, as well as any activities that cause harm to our fellow beings, human or otherwise. We aim to provide spiritual comfort, fellowship, and food for thought to those practicing or exploring a vegan lifestyle. We offer guidance and peer support for all those seeking a more compassionate and spiritual life. We commit to sharing these principles freely with humility and respect in support of non-human animals and the earth.
Now it is usually time for our song of compassion. But first, I would like to talk to you about a very serious matter. Most of you have probably noticed that my hair is getting very long, and I suspect that many of you are laying awake at night wondering, why doesn't Reverend William cut his hair? Today, I'm going to reveal the reason for this. Oh my gosh, I heard thunder. Okay, so yes, I am training to be the mad vegan prophet. And I understand that the term mad vegan prophet does not just roll off your tongue. So please feel free to simply call me the MVP. So on weekends, I am going to start visiting that New York City den of iniquity, sometimes referred to as Times Square. And there I will preach the gospel of compassion to all beings. So you may think that with my MVP hair, I'm ready to start this mission of compassion, but I need more than just MVP hair. I need MVP signs. So I've been working on some ideas that I'd like to share with you. Yes. What did that thing on your plate ever do to you? What do you think? Yes, no, can I get a thumbs up? Is it good? Thumbs up, please, okay. What if someone milked your mother for 5 years and then ate her? Okay. Yes, pigs are smarter than you are. That is just a statement of fact. I don't think anyone would argue with that. And this one is a variation of that old classic. This time the end really is near. So please, if you have other ideas for signs that I could use, please share them with us. You can send them to compassionconsortium@gmail.com. So you are probably thinking, since I have the MVP hair and several MVP signs, I'm ready to hit Times Square. But you would be wrong, because I need an MVP outfit. Here I am. Oh, more thunder. Okay. I am in the Garden of Kalahari, wearing my certified replica of the robe that Jesus wore when he delivered his Sermon on the Mount. And it is available at Amazon.com for $24.99. And you will see that I am also armed with my staff of compassion. Here's the really cool thing. If you look really, really close, and you look at that windows on the second floor right above me, what do you see? Well, you see an angel. An angel appeared above my head while this photo was being taken. Let me say that again. An angel appeared above my head while this photo was being taken. What is cooler than that? Now I am ready to take my mission of preaching the gospel of compassion to Times Square. If you are ever in Times Square on a weekend, please find me. Now, how will you find me? Well, it's actually going to be easy, because I will be one of a very small number of humans who is not dressed up like a Disney character, a Marvel Comics superhero, or the Statue of Liberty. So please find me. Bring your own signs if you like, and together we will bring the message of compassion for all beings to the denizens of Times Square. Then maybe we'll all go somewhere and have an MVP compassion party. So that is it today for Tales from the Mad Vegan Preacher. But until next time, please remember to have compassion for all beings. So, Phil, if you're ready, it is now time to listen to our compassion song for this month. We are playing this song as a special request, and it needs no introduction. Please enjoy and sing along if you please, and it is okay to cry.
Puff the magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Little Jackie Paper loved that rascal Puff and brought him strings and sealing wax and other fancy stuff. Oh, Puff the magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Puff the magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Together they would travel on a boat with billowed sail. Jackie kept a lookout perched on Puff's gigantic tail. Noble kings and princes would bow whene'er they came. Pirate ships would lower their flags when Puff roared out his name. Oh, Puff the magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Puff the magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. A dragon lives forever, but not so little boys. Painted wings and giant's rings make way for other toys. One gray night it happened, Jackie Paper came no more, and Puff that mighty dragon, he ceased his fearless roar. His head was bent in sorrow, green scales fell like rain. Puff no longer went to play along the cherry lane. Without his lifelong friend, Puff could not be brave. So Puff, that mighty dragon, sadly slipped into his cave. Oh, Puff, the magic dragon, lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Puff, the magic dragon, lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu.
All right, hello everyone. Rev William, I have to just say, it's very interesting. Even your Mad Vegan Prophet, your MVP, you're doing that in an interspecies way, because if you don't know what the new generation calls MVP today is the GOAT. Has anybody ever heard the term the GOAT? They're the GOAT, the greatest of all time, right? So we're already bringing in the interspecies. You're going to be the GOAT out there on Times Square. So I'm inspired. Can't wait to hear your chronicles as they continue on. So let's get into some spiritual practice, shall we? Today's spiritual practice, we are pulling from a tradition that is considered and called metaphysical spirituality. And as Rev Sarah said in her opening, we are interfaith ministers. We pull from many different traditions. And today's practice, we're going to be doing something that's called mystical meditation. It's going to be a prayer / meditation. We'll do this together. You can find a comfortable place to sit. If you have a colleague or friend around you, whether they be two-legged or four-legged or winged, feel free to invite them to join you if they'd like. It's their choice to consent or not consent to do that. And we're going to be doing something called mystical meditation. Now, I do want to give the background. This is coming from a practitioner named Dr. Leon Masters. And I want to define for you what he considers mystical meditation, because he acknowledges that that word mysticism has been used in many contexts in the world, and it can be an off-putting word for people. So he wanted to define what the word means from a spiritual perspective to help frame the meditation we're about to do. The qualities of mysticism, properly defined and explained per Dr. Leon Masters, are stated this way. 1, discovering one's ultimate self-reality, which is the relationship of that person with the universe, person or being, because we are interspecies here. 2, discovering if there is a supreme universal intelligence or God that resides in the deeper level of the human mind. 3, making direct contact with this supreme universal mind or God. 4, experiencing this presence, knowing that universal mind or God exists and can be contacted. 5, bringing forth into the conscious mind and the surface daily life, the creativity, the attributes, and the power of the universal mind for the purpose of improving life through the application of practical mysticism. 6, being guided from within in all one does in daily life through intuitive extrasensory perception. And 7, synthesizing the functional mind and therefore being able to create the life one desires. So that is just to give a little bit of framing. I also want to introduce you to Loki, who is on your screen right now. Loki's going to be joining us in the metaphysical meditation, in this mystical meditation. Find a comfortable position, just begin to settle in. You're going to notice it takes Loki just a minute to settle in here. I'm about to get a really nice kiss as we're settling in to listen to Dr. Masters' meditation. So find a place to sit, and we're going to drop in. He's going to begin his meditation. We'll do about a 6-minute meditation in this mystical prayer.
I close my eyes and my senses to the exterior world for just a few moments, that I may enter into the interior world of consciousness within myself. And as I do, I close off my outer senses and transfer the energy that I use for outer sense perception to inner sense perception, moving from the outer part of me to the inner me. Turning my mind in upon itself, reversing my senses inward to sense, to feel, to be aware that the interior region of my forehead becomes as a looking glass into which and through which I can see the beyond that is within. My body is clothed in an aura of pure white light that emanates forth from the upper torso of my body, deflecting all outside disturbances, leaving me in a state of inner contemplation, inner reality. And I am part of that reality, and it is part of me. Where God and I occupy the same moment of time, the one eternal moment where my soul is part of God's light. Where my breath and breathing is the breath of the eternal breathing in and through me. Where all of the possibilities of what I may become already are. That my mind consciousness exists in infinite existence. Without being able to say where I end and God begins, or God ends and I begin. Just oneness, just wholeness, just completeness. I sit for a few moments in a state of peace, in a state of contemplation, feeling the presence that is within me, the peace and the love that is within me, for I am one with the whole unified field of consciousness that is God. In a few moments, I'll open my eyes and senses to the exterior world once again. But I will retain within myself the higher consciousness of meditation, that it may guide me, lead me, direct me, heal me, and love me. And so let my eyes and senses now slowly begin to open. And as they open, let me stretch my arms and hands high over my head in a symbolic gesture of always reaching for something higher in my life, knowing that that something higher that I reach for is to be found in the height of who and what I truly am within myself, a living, breathing manifestation of the stars of the heavens of universal life, mind, and spirit, having taken image, shape, form, and embodiment. And I bring down my hands, resting in the peace, the security, the wellness that this is so, and so it is.
I'm just sitting with that for a minute here, letting that affirmation wash over your body, letting that peace we touched into and that unity we touched into just pervade your being, your consciousness, and infuse into this beautiful compassion that we are gathered within together today. And with that, thank you for your practice. And I will now pass the mic to Victoria for our guest interview, which has remained a surprise to this point. So I will let her be the announcer of the surprise.
Always happy to announce a surprise. But first I have to say that I had a surprise by the Mad Vegan Prophet. I must admit to being the photographer, but I was not told why. So I met William in 1997. And in all this time, one of the little sticky parts in our relationship is he will say to me, "You never know when I'm being funny." So this time I tried to pick up on it really, really early and know from the beginning. And I had fun, and I hope nobody who's new didn't. So yeah, we do have a different speaker today. We were going to have Chris Gerke, who is a lovely vegan practitioner of the old European earth religions known as Wicca, probably the most misunderstood religion on earth. I think it scares a lot of people, and we were so looking forward to having this wonderful vegan explain this beautiful earth-centered practice to us, but unfortunately we seem to be living in the age of viruses, and she was not able to be with us today. So we are so lucky to have someone that we have been wanting to do for book and film night for a very long time, and he was very willing to join us. We're so fortunate to have as such a great friend and supporter of Main Street Vegan Academy, Thomas Wade Jackson. If you have seen the beautiful film A Prayer for Compassion, which we highlight on the Compassion Consortium website, that's Thomas's exquisite 2019 film about spirituality and food choices. And he has not stopped since. He's really been traveling the world since 2015, making that film and a subsequent project that's called Compassion in Action, Bringing the Elixir Home. That is a 10-part docu-series that is really Thomas's love letter to activists. And that will be available by the end of this year or early 2023. And he's also branched out more into narrative filmmaking, something that he did early in his career. He has a Student Academy Award from back in the day, but now in this current day, he is making a comedy short called Step Strangers that will be shooting in August. And in addition to all the filmmaking for which he's known, Thomas, I'm going to be focusing on you now instead of just talking about you. I know that these days you have another name for yourself. Tell us what that is and what it's all about.
Yeah, first I just want to say thank you, Victoria, for calling me today and thinking of me. I was going to be here already, but it's a privilege and pleasure always to talk to you one-on-one and to speak to everybody. But you know, lately, I guess for the last year or so, I've been calling myself a vegangelist, because I got the gospel. Hallelujah. I got the good news, because you know, gospel it's nothing but a little good news. And the good news I go around preaching is that the more you align yourself with your true compassionate nature, the better you're going to feel. The more energy you're going to have, the more connection you're going to feel to whatever spiritual, religious path, to all of life, to animals and people. You know, I have a gift, and it's called the Gospel of Spiritual Alignment, and it can change your life. And brothers and sisters, I'm here to tell you today that whether you're already living a whole food, plant-based, wholesome, vegan lifestyle, I believe we all can find more ways to align ourselves with that true compassionate nature. A lot of this has to do with self-care and self-compassion, because so many activists never stop. But so yeah, that's been my message for the last year or so, going around in the new film. I interview psychologists and people about communication and about self-care, and just really trying to help activists become, and including myself, become more effective and have more peace in our life.
So how do we make time for self-care and focus on self-care when we're thinking about the animals? We know that nonstop suffering, and sometimes it just feels like, well, I can't turn from that to go to a movie.
Yeah, it's really tough. And I meet a lot of activists who deal with that, because there's so much to do. I mean, the hard part is not turning away. It's just finding the time to turn away. People feel like there's no time to do it. But my experience has been that, you know, when you just push and push and push, you become way less effective. You know, in the new docuseries, I interview Dr. Melanie Joy, and she talks about the movement doesn't need like a army of walking zombies, you know, trauma survivors. It needs us to really take care and realize that, you know, I mean, personally, the way I say it is, the more we're all connected, and the more you take care of yourself, the brighter your light shines, and it lightens the world around you. And I think it helps people hear what you have to say. So I think to be a more effective activist, parent, partner, anything, you have to start by taking care of yourself with self-love and self-compassion. It makes you way more effective in loving other people, I believe.
Well, you're extremely effective with your speaking, with your films, all the things that you're doing out there in the world. So for those who don't know your story, it's got to be a little bit abbreviated because our time is short, but let us know where you started out spiritually and how you got to veganism.
Yeah, because I wasn't always a evangelist. I wasn't always vegan. I grew up in South Georgia, and I was raised Southern Baptist. And I grew up eating what everybody else ate, just a Southern version of the standard American diet. But when I went to New York and I started a daily meditation practice, I was attending Unity Church. I was meditating every day. And that's when it happened for me. This was in 2005 before YouTube. So I wasn't really exposed to veganism or vegetarianism. And no one at Unity Church was talking about it. But when I started meditating every day, what had happened is that I grew up in the South, as I mentioned, and I saw animals killed for food. I saw my grandmother wring the necks of her chickens. I saw my dad, gutting and cleaning fish while they were alive, and looking up there and just going, one day to be an adult, I have to do this thing to be a grown up, And so and you have to bury it. I felt like you had to bury those feelings of like, this is horrific. And so I did a good job burying it for all those years. But when I started meditating every day and becoming present with everything in my life, I became present with what I was eating. I realized, oh, that was an animal that would be alive now if I hadn't chose to eat it. And I was really trying to become more of a spiritual and kind and compassionate person. And I felt like that wasn't in alignment with a vegan lifestyle. So I had heard of vegetarianism. I became vegetarian. And then within the first week or two of being vegetarian, I went to a deli and said, hey, I would have made an order. I was so proud to be vegetarian. I was like, make sure it's vegetarian. And the guy behind the counter was like, vegetarian or vegan? I went, vegan? I was like, is that like Star Trek? I never heard that word before. It was like unknown and this weird thing, but there's a little voice went off in the back of my head and it said, if there are people doing this, there must be a good reason. And I told him to make it vegan, and I just easily became vegan. Even back then, it's so funny because I've learned that, and I know personally now that it's so hard for so many people, to do something that's out of character with the indoctrination of everyone around them. But for me at that point, and I actually thought I might get sick and die. Or I didn't know about the die, but I knew I was going to get weak. Because I knew you needed calcium, I knew you needed protein. I'd heard all that stuff. And I said, you know what? I don't care if I get weak. I can't live like that anymore. I want to find peace in my life. Yeah.
I wonder if the reason it was easy for you was that you had reached that level of spiritual parity. You were just at that point in your inner life that your outer life had to match.
Yeah, and there's another thing that I really believe made it easier is I was away from home. I was in a city far away from, because I think what happens is when you don't leave or you're always with the same people, you take on roles and people see you a certain way. And it really, when you don't have that eye and you can just reinvent yourself, then you get to choose like, hey, do I do this or do I not do that? Not was I raised to do that, but is that part of who I want to be? And that's part of that was looking at what I was eating and other things too.
So Thomas, you've done so much traveling. I mean, even just with Prayer for Compassion, you went to India twice, you went to Morocco. I mean, you became a total globetrotter. And I know that in addition to meeting lots of people who understand this way of life and lots of people who don't, you went to a lot of religious institutions. You met clergy out the kazoo. So tell us what you learned from them. What about this spirituality, food choices connection?
I learned so much from clergy and just people who are very faithful. I mean, people who've ever are in a particular path and they've made the connection. These are people who went back and looked at the teachings and they were able to quote teachings from their tradition. Because what I mainly discovered is every tradition that I was able to interview somebody from, their teachings of compassion is in complete alignment with the vegan diet. I mean, when you think about most religions have a golden rule. I mean, almost every religion has something that says, treat other people the way you'd like to be treated, or don't treat people the way you don't want to be treated, or something to that regard. Like it's like karma, what you put out is going to come back to you. That's in all the religions. And they also talk about the environment. They talk about your health, the body temple. They talk about taking care of animals and people. And I was really surprised about the animals, especially in the Christian tradition. Nobody really told me that we were like prescribed the vegan diet. somehow I missed Genesis 1:29 before making the film. And so, there were so many things that I found in alignment. The other thing I noticed too was, and that I discovered, is that it seems that a lot of ministers say that they're having a hard time getting young people into the church. Like, the way it's going, they're really worried about the religion surviving and all. And some of the ministers were very clear and able to see that a lot of it has to do with the hypocrisy, that young people are way more present and they can see when you're saying one thing and doing another. Like I went to a church today, to a Baptist church, and they were talking about the Ten Commandments, and when they got to the one about do not kill, I kept waiting for them to say, you mean except for animals, right? Like, but they didn't say that part. But what he did say, what the preacher did talk about, was that, you can be saved whether you do the 10 commandments or not, but those 10 commandments are there for you to, as guideposts, as signs. And if you don't follow them, you will crash off the side of the road and you may die or something. And as he was saying that, I was just thinking, I've noticed when I go around now, I see a lot of people suffering. I hear a lot of stories, like a lot of people are people from my childhood, and yeah, he's got this and they got that, and that person passed and all this. And I'm hearing the preacher basically telling everybody, look, you are not following the do not kill and you are suffering and you'll die. But he's not aware himself that it's all there. So even when the other thing I noticed too, even when I interview or speak to religious people and ministers who are not vegan, they many times build a case for veganism and what they're saying. And this morning he built a case for it. But there's just the connection that's not being made. And I think a lot of it has to do, if you're not vegan already, you're complicit in the violence. And it's really hard to look at something you're complicit in. This is why I've seen so many people and interviewed so many people that went vegan for health reasons or environmental reasons, had no interest in animals whatsoever. But after 6 months to a year, their heart softens and they get it, but it's harder when you're complicit in it, I think. But yeah, I think so. What the message I'm taking away is that, I feel like for religion to continue into the future, we have to really become accountable and look at the guideposts that are there and not turn away from them. And also, I think we need to, look at the practices that are harming and not hurtful. I think Jesus, when he talked about the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law, I think we really need to go through our teachings and look at how many of them may use discernment, how many of those are causing harm and how many of those are helping, and just really be open to following the Holy Spirit and the Spirit that's alive now, and doing what we need to do and having the courage. And Jesus is a perfect example in the sense that the people of his time were very pious and very religious, but he was saying, look, we got to go past the letter of the law. We got to evaluate what we're doing, and we got to go within and find the kingdom within and live by the spirit of the law.
I think that it's easy to lose that. And as I look around at the tremendous growth of veganism, of animal rights, certainly of environmentalism, and then I look at what I see in some sorts of religious settings, it's almost like they're going a little bit backwards. And where you can, go to your regular secular office party and you'll be asked if you want, the regular or the vegan or whatever. And then at church, it's just like, no, it's a pig roast. What more do you want? And it's certainly not just Christianity. There were just some terrible things coming out of India about the terrible mistreatment of elephants who are regarded as sacred, and yet still the living elephants are mistreated in religious contexts, and it's a problem. So in having traveled all over and seen a lot, what do you do with that kind of stuff?
It's tough, like you mentioned the elephant, but the cow in India is one of the most sacred animals. And, in the film, I go to Animal Aid, and I cut this part out because it might have been a little too controversial in some way. But the director of Animal Aid talked about how there will be a cow that's sick because it got hit by a car. It ate a lot of plastic. It's laying in the ground next to a temple, and people will walk over the cow, go into the temple and worship a golden cow or a statue of a cow, and never bother to check on the other cow, never call Animal Aid and say, so what do you do with that? You're right. That's a big question. I think we really just need to have people start evaluating And I think some religions that don't meditate, we need to really encourage the meditation. I think self-reflection and also responsibility. I think what happens, even when the minister was talking about the Ten Commandments, he really said several times, this is not going to save you. You got to ask Jesus to save you. But once you're saved, you can do it doesn't matter if you do whatever. Like that was the thing for me, is like in Christianity, when I grew up, like I got saved, I felt like I could do anything and I'm going to heaven. Like I had my free ticket. And so I think we have to reevaluate and try to say, no, we're stewards. We have to go back and look at the beginning of when we were given dominion, and look at what dominion really means. And if you see the film, Jeffrey Cohen nails it. And we need to take that dominion and we need to apply it to all of the earth and become stewards and take responsibility. One of the sad things is I was in a grocery store with a person one time, and I made a comment about the environment or whatever, and they're a very religious person. They said, "Oh, don't worry about it. God's going to fix it all." And my heart just dropped. And I thought, what we really need to be teaching people is that the only hands that God has on this earth is our hands. Like you can't leave it up to God to come and fix this without God working through us. So I think the solution has to be is empowering and encouraging people to let God work through them to make a better planet, and don't wait for God to do it. Like have faith in God, but do the work. Without doing the work, the faith in God is just letting his creation be destroyed and being a part of it. Like I think we really have to encourage people to step up and do the work of God and be the hands of God.
Amen. Well, one of the other beings that those of us who are parents or who have children in our lives have an interest in is certainly those children. And your daughter Melody was just such a wonderful part of the film. She was just a little thing. Now she's 9 years old. So talk to us a little bit about the spirituality of being a dad.
Being a dad is what changed me more than anything in the world. And I was fortunate to be 45 when this happened to me. I'm afraid that if I was younger, I would have missed this beautiful opportunity to be present. And I think I was fortunate to have already found meditation and things like that, and know that this is spiritual responsibility. I mean, I have a responsibility to, despite all of the indoctrination of what a parent means the way I got it back in the 70s, which was not a very encouraging, positive way, I have a responsibility to go through my stuff and make sure I don't lay it on her. And that can be hard. You can see it coming out. Like it's so easy to fall back into the way you were. So I think one of my biggest responsibilities is to be present to the fact that that this is a child who is a being of her own design, who came here to do what she's here to do. I'm not to tell her that this is your path or that's your path, but I'm to introduce her to many things and let her choose from them. So I really feel blessed that I was able to take her around with the film when we were making the film, and after we made the film, she got to travel and watching her grow and seeing the light within her and seeing her separateness from me and her mom and all this develop is like a gift. And it's scary sometimes, but it's beautiful. And I think being a parent is like when you sign on, like it wasn't something I was planning on, it just happened. So I don't know that I ever would have thought I was ready to do it, because that was my thing. I'm never going to be ready to do it. But once it happens, you have to be ready to step up. There's too many parents I see that are not stepping up, that are not putting their children first. And this is why I do the work I do. This is why I made the film, is for her and those children that are coming. So yeah, being a parent is special. And I'm grateful that I had the opportunity and have the opportunity.
So just in our last minute, Thomas, tell us what's most important to you today? What do you see for the future?
I think most important today is I have Melody today. So just finishing our day together and spending it. Next week, she'll be with her mom. I'll have new important things to focus on. But I think every day, the most important thing is to really just wake up with before I get out of bed, I'm always connecting and saying, I'm one with spirit. Lead me today, guide me today. I think just the willingness to be happiness and to be love and to be the things that you would like to see on the planet. I think those are important, because I think we hit so many messages and there's so much shame around us and in the culture that it's easy to not step out. All of these things I'm doing, we talked a little bit of other things I'm doing. I have doubts all along the way, but you know what? I've learned that's just part of it. That hey, thank you for sharing. I got to be busy today. I got to do this and just keep doing the work. So that's to me, it's just taking every day and walking through any fear that comes forward or any doubt and doing what you know you need to do with love and joy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And for anybody that has not seen the film A Prayer for Compassion, you can find that on Vimeo and on Amazon Prime. You can also go to aprayerforcompassion.com. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can see it for free and give it away for free. Also, I created a tiny URL. It's easy to remember. Tiny URL dash and the initials AP or APFC dash free. So it's tiny URL / APFC dash free. Feel free to watch it, pass it on. You can also rent it on Vimeo, but I want it to be available for anybody who would like to see it.
Cool. All right. We'll put all that in our post materials. And bless you, Thomas. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was so inspiring. Always love a chance to listen to Thomas preach the evangelist gospel. Beautiful. All right. So this is the time in our service where if you haven't done any kind of checking in with your body, get a chance to do that. Just remember that, these ears and these eyes that we use in the mouth, it's attached to this whole other part of us. And it's good every once in a while to check in with that and see how it's doing. So we've been sitting here for about an hour. What do you need? Do you need to adjust yourself a little bit? Do you need to stretch it all a little bit? I always like to be inspired by some animals during this moment. So, think about your favorite large winged bird who might be stretching and soaring and flying, or something I like to do, some neck turns, maybe channel your inner owl in this moment. Just get some stretches in. Anything that's calling for your attention. We've got a few minutes. Great. And now it is my pleasure and honor to bring you the Compassion in Action segment of our gathering. Now, what happens in Compassion in Action is we like to highlight a member of our community who is doing amazing things in their own life, being an example of compassion. So I'm very excited to introduce you today, after a few attempts to have her on the show that have now come into being now. I'd like to introduce you to Lorrin Maughan, and she is a Gestalt practitioner and energy healer who partners with her equine companions, Gift and Fella, and we're going to see a few pictures of them soon, to support vegan professionals and activists who are experiencing stress, trauma, and burnout. She has been involved with the In Defense of Animals Activist Support Initiative as a counselor, and more recently as admin of their activist support Facebook group. Lorrin currently serves on the board of the Northwest Animal Rights Network, focused on racial equity and activist support. And she leads the Vegan Leaders in Corporate Management Corporate Initiative Support Program. She is currently based near Seattle in the Pacific Northwest, where she lives, as we said, with Gift and Fella and her 3 cats, Jasper, Morris, and Piper. So Lorrin, welcome. So glad to have you here. What I'd love to do is I want to bring up the slides that you shared with us, the photos of you in action with your horses, and just have you narrate for us the photos as we flip through. How does that sound?
Oh, sure. Yeah, the stars of the show.
Yeah, let's do it. And then you can kind of tell us a little bit about your story as we're looking at these beautiful images. So go ahead, give us some stories here.
Okay, well, this is Fella. This is Fella helping somebody get into their body. You can see her with her hand on her solar plexus chakra and just connecting in with him. Horses are such somatic beings. They really do help us to ground and get back into our bodies as big mammals to help us co-regulate. This was the next one is a couple that came in to see us. That's Gift helping them write their letters to themselves at the end of the session.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, she's a beautiful horse, and we'll talk a bit more about her in a bit. She's actually the reason I do this. She told me that I had to. So it's a long story, and we'll get into it. But about 10 years ago, I was studying animal communication and Reiki, and was just like, that's it. I'm out of the corporate world. I'm just going to help animals, only animals all the time. Never gonna I don't want to work with people. And she said to me, this beautiful mare, she said, you know, you can't help my people unless you help your people. You've got to help the humans. And, you know, I hold on to that every day. I hold on to that when I lose my faith in humanity. You know, I realize I have a job to do, and that's to help people come back to their hearts and to hold on to hope and to build this new world that we want, this vision, hold this vision for this new world that we want to build.
That is such a powerful message. So let's flip through the next few of these, and I'd love to hear more about.
That's Bella doing some more of his powerful work. So the horses are, you can see, you know, most of the time here they're at free liberty. So I work in a little field, and they can choose if and how they work with the humans. So I always tell people that when they come, you know, let your expectations drop, right? This isn't about the horses being required to work with you. The fact of the matter is that you're in their presence, and that in and of itself is going to be healing for you, right? He's a 1,200-pound mammal, right? His natural state is one of serenity and connection with the planet. And in that state, his nervous system is going to help our nervous system downregulate. He's going to help us bring ourselves back into connection with nature, back into connection with the planet, back into our bodies, right? So, and there have been studies that show that when people are in the presence of horses who are allowed to just be themselves and who are just, you know, in their natural state of serenity, that their cortisol drops and their blood pressure drops and their serotonin and their oxytocin go up. So I always say to people, I don't care if the horse is going graze in the furthest corner, you're still in connection with them. You're still healing with them. And invariably, though, the horses love to get involved. So they have that option.
I love that because it answers the question a lot of people have, which is how can we do work in an interspecies way without, quote, using or being in control of the other being and not having it be their choice. And I like how you have allowed the horses to choose when they want to come in and be healers and when their presence is enough.
Yeah, and you know, I think that's an important message for animal activists as well, to really see the individual rather than see, you know, animals are not a monolith, right? It's like when we do anti-racist work, you know, people of color, people of the global majority, they're not a monolith. You can't say, oh, you know, they're all the same. Animals the same, right? They're absolutely individuals, and we need to see them as such, and we need to see them in their beautiful compassion, in their beautiful wisdom, and we need to respect and honor that. Some of them, you know, will fight harder to be partners in their liberation than others, just like human beings, right? They, you know, some of them will give up hope sooner. Some of them are more resilient. We have to see that so that we can better work with them to bring their liberation about, right?
Yes.
This is Gift. This horse is amazing. She's amazing. Before she came to me, she had been through some horrific things with humans. The first 3 years that I knew her in the rescue where I met her, you couldn't touch her. Humans couldn't go near her for 3 years until she could learn to slowly trust that she was safe. And once she did that, and once I started to lean in, like once she gave me that message of you know, it has to be a partnership. You've got to help the people, right? They're the ones doing this to us. You have to help people come back to their heart. Once I stepped into that, she was just like, all right, I'm here. I'm going to work on this with you. And she has the most incredible resilience and compassion and forgiveness of you know, almost any animal I've ever met. And you can see she's always drawn to doing this really big work with people when they're in these huge emotions. You can just see her face there. You know, she's like, look at this human. This is the reality of humans, right? And you know, Thomas, when you talked about how the younger generations are able to see when we're incongruent, right, between what we're feeling and saying, what we're thinking and saying, what we're believing and saying. The horses are masters at that. They demand that we come into congruence. They demand that we're honest with ourselves. And when we're fully in ourselves and our expression of humanity, then they see us fully and they acknowledge that, and they tell us, like, there you are. This is you. This is you as a divine being. You know, it's beautiful.
So let's, just for the sake of time, let's just flip through the last few photos without really narrating everything, just to get a visual of them.
Yeah.
And then we'll come.
A great sense of humor too, by the way.
Nice. Awesome. Keep going, Phil. Let's just see the last of these photos. And beautiful. Keep on headed. Keep on going here. And I'd love to come off video just for once we run through this, just to be able to see Lorrin's full face here.
Yeah. That's the last picture.
Okay, great. So thank you so much, Lorrin, for sharing your work with the world and doing this and being open. I'm just so touched by the message that Gift shared with you, and basically saying, I want to be your partner on this healing journey to heal all beings, humans, animals, those who are harming, those who are being harmed. Let's just do it together.
Let's do it together. Yeah. And she's encouraged me to go back to my animal communication studies as well. So I'm back in a program there. So it's good. It's good. It's integrating the human, non-human element beautifully.
Excellent. And go ahead and type in the chat if you would like to put some sort of information, like if you have a website or something where people can learn more. That would be lovely to have that in the chat.
Great, thank you. And I just want to take a quick minute to say thank you very much to Lisa Levinson, because she has been an integral part of my journey as well. And you know, the work that In Defense of Animals does with activists and activist support is hugely important and very well appreciated. So hi, Lisa, and thank you.
Yes, thank you. Lisa's one of our advisory board members at the Compassion Consortium as well. So we also echo the thank you. Thank you, Lorrin, for joining us. And I would love to turn it over to Rev Sarah now to take us into some prayers and blessings.
All right. Thank you, Erica and Lorrin, Thomas, Victoria, and that mad vegan prophet who gets an A+ for creativity today. That one caught me by surprise. So Erica's practice today took us deep inside, and I'd like to take us back into that mind frame for today's blessings and prayers, you know, listening to this kind of internal space deep, deep, deep within us. So I'm going to, for today's practice, a little different again, try to mix it up each month. I'm going to ask you all a series of questions. There are 5 questions that are inspired by Julia Cameron's book, Seeking Wisdom, A Spiritual Path to Creative Connection. If any of you have ever come across Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist Way, and has written a lot of different things about creativity. So sticking with this idea of creativity. The questions use the word God, but if that name doesn't resonate for you, it's no problem ever around here. Please feel free to swap out in your head a name or a spiritual concept that works better for you in the questions. And as I read them, I'm going to ask you to do is to tune into snippets of thoughts that come forth. Snippets of thoughts that you don't over intellectualize, you know, a word that comes up and feels like it's out of place, or it's quirky, or I couldn't say that in public, or that's not fully formed, or any of these kind of things that we do to quash our creativity, to let that internal critic or censor just have a few minutes off, and to write into the chat what comes to mind for you. And I'll ask Phil if you could open the chat for folks so that they have the ability to type in. So we're going to do that for 4 questions, and then the 5th one will be anyone you'd like to ask prayers for today. Okay, sound fair enough? So take a deep breath. And here is the first question. As a child, I thought God was, fill in the blank. As a child, I thought God was big, an old man, I thought God was female. Other folks said they thought God was a man. God was love. God was a loving father. someone big in the sky, someone mean because he didn't let the animals go to heaven. As a child, I thought God was our Father, angry, or an invisible force. God was all of these things, all these ideas, punishing. A comic book character. I thought God was a comic book character. I thought God was energy. In the air, everywhere. All right, moving on to the second question. I pushed this God away when, ... I pushed this God away when. I pushed this God away when the tractors came and took down the bunny woods next to my church, and God didn't protect those bunnies. In the chat, I thought I pushed God away when I thought I was unwanted, when my family fell apart, when I didn't get what I wanted. Whew. When I saw my turtle friends slaughtered and eaten for dinner and I was 7. Pushed this God away when. Some folks have not pushed God away. Some have when people were killed at war or their family member died. Some people didn't push God away, but their concept grew. This is common. I pushed God away when Santa and the Tooth Fairy went away, and the Easter Bunny, and yeah, all of that. Or when I learned more. All right, third question. If I wasn't so scared, I would ask God to. If I wasn't so scared, I would ask God to. Sometimes takes a little more thought to arise from within. If I wasn't so scared, I would ask God to help me. Yeah. I would ask God to return to us. If I wasn't so scared, I'd talk about God more in public. Yeah. Or to heal me 100%. To make everyone allergic to eating meat. I would talk about God if I really knew him. Yeah. All right, last one. Oh, to give me the courage to take the big actions I needed to take. Yes. And the last question here before the prayer question. If it didn't feel so darn silly, I'd ask God to ... If it didn't feel so darn silly, I would ask God to return us all to the creativity we had as first graders, if it didn't feel so darn silly. I would ask him to unify all people, to defy the laws that God set in motion, to stop wars, to stop cruelty, to heal the heart of Vladimir Putin. Erica would ask God to dinner. Can I come? And ask God to help me gain weight or to change human nature, to help people remember they can talk to animals. Amen. Yeah. What I see in your responses here is a lot of complexity, a lot of curiosity, a lot of the duality also we see in answers. God is God is love, God is punishing. Asking is scary, asking is silly. All of these things existing. Thank you. Thank you for raising your hand in the chat like a little first grader and answering these questions that we have posed. And finally, today, if there's anyone that you would like to ask for prayers for, please also feel free to throw those into the chat as Phil brings up our group prayer-ish meditation. That meditation, as Thomas mentioned, that we can find in every tradition. Here it goes, folks. And we're also going to say a prayer within here for the robin that Debbie found yesterday. Yeah. Who managed to complete their migration all the way to Winnipeg only to die after striking a window. Prayers for all that are affected by toxic capitalism and all of the animals displaced in the Ukraine. Prayers for anything that is weighing heavily on your heart as we say together, may all creatures everywhere be happy and free. May the thoughts, words, and actions of our lives contribute to this happiness and to this freedom for all. May it be so. Amen. So mote it be. And so it is. Ashe. Amen. All of our beautiful closing words. Thank you for this moment back in deep inside of ourselves, extending our compassion out. And William, I believe, as we transition to joyful songs and to fellowship, you have a few announcements for us. Is that true?
First of all, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. And we have some upcoming events that I would like to share with you. So next month on May 22nd, our spiritual service will have a special guest, Reverend Lydia Houston, who is a Course in Miracles ordained minister. She's been a vegan for 2 decades, and she's a graduate of the T. Cullen Foundation for Nutrition Studies, a Main Street vegan certified vegan lifestyle coach and educator, and a personal chef. So our focus will be on the Course in Miracles as scribed by Helen Schuckman. I probably pronounced that the wrong way, but Helen Schuckman and Bill Thetford. And this is a contemporary spiritual classic that was originally published in 1976, and it's now available in 27 languages. So I hope you will join us for that. And then the next thing I'd like to tell you about is that on June 14th, in honor of Pride Month, we will be having a Pride Month book night with our featured guest author, Jasmine Singer. Now, Jasmine is a worldwide leading expert on veganism. She's a speaker on topics including radical body positivity, personal narrative as a means of social justice, and how to change the world for animals. She's the author of the Veg News Guide to Being a Fabulous Vegan, and also Always Too Much, Never Enough, a memoir. So we're going to be focusing on those 2 books. And I just want to also add that along with animal law professor Marianne Sullivan, she is the co-host of the Our Hen House podcast, which is a very well-known and award-winning show that centers around animal rights.
Ah, yes. And the Engaged Practice Circle, if you're part of that, on May 16th, we're going to be doing something called Oceaning, a self-care practice to help us learn to deal with overwhelming emotions that come up. We'll put the membership link also in the chat if you're interested in that. I just threw a bunch of stuff in the chat. Thank you for joining us, Compassion Consortium Sunday service. All right,